I'm Randy Stokes. I'm a systems architect at FamilySearch. For the last 14 or so years, I've been fairly heavily involved in long-term digital preservation systems. And specifically at FamilySearch, I've been involved in the design, the implementation, and the enhancements of our current long-term digital preservation solution. Today in this presentation, I would like to go over what it means in general to do long-term digital preservation and then what we are doing specifically at FamilySearch in this area. Please take a moment and read this statement. FamilySearch, formerly known as the Utah Genealogical Society, has been involved in gathering records of genealogical value since 1894. The intent of collecting these records was to bring together records that would help people find and connect with their own ancestors. Until 1938, the collection was primarily made up of books. Books and other documents contain records that are priceless. It is really cool to look at the actual handwriting on your great-great-grandfather's birth certificate. The difficulty is you have to travel to an archive to use these original documents. In 1938, the Genealogical Society of Utah started microfilming books in an attempt to allow researchers better access to the information and to preserve the contents of the books if the original was damaged or destroyed. But even with microfilm, it was hard to get information out to the large number of people who needed access to this information. So about 15 years ago, FamilySearch made the decision to convert its microfilm holdings and acquisition of all new records to digital format. So why make such a big investment in digital technology? There are a number of really good things about digital storage of records. First, storing records digitally takes a lot less space. In the space taken by a single book of, say, 500 pages, you can digitally store images of about 15 million pages. Another really cool attribute of digital material is that you can duplicate it exactly with no loss of image quality. So it is really easy to distribute the exact same image thousands of times. In terms of helping people doing genealogical research, probably the most important attribute of digital imagery is that it can be accessed over a network from anywhere in the world. And if you have digital descriptions or transcriptions of what the image contains, it becomes very easy to perform searches and in a matter of seconds find records with the information you are looking for. Digital also allows the capture of excellent image quality and images that are very readable. And the cost of capturing and storing the images as compared to books or microfilm is orders of magnitude less expensive. But there is one major challenge. With the constant changing of technology and the attributes of the various materials used to store digital material, long-term preservation of digital information can be a challenge. So what are the challenges in preserving digital data? Let's take a look at the various ways that digital data can be lost. Media failure. Pretty much every type of media has either mechanical or other components that fail. Anyone who has experienced turning on their laptop and finding out that their hard drive has failed is familiar with this problem. And there are accidents. I have to tell you, one time the noise from the release of gas from the fire suppression system during a test set up a sympathetic vibration in the disk heads and caused the heads to crash and destroyed the data on the disk platters. You can pretty much count on unexpected media failure sooner or later. Bit rot. For a variety of reasons, with only a few exceptions, the data on the various types of media start to deteriorate over time. For example, under normal usage conditions, both hard disks and CDs start to experience data loss through bit rot within about 5 years, although it may go undetected for quite a while. Physical destruction. This one's pretty obvious. It might range from someone dropping a tape cartridge to a fire in the data center. Malicious deletion or alteration. This could be caused, for example, by a disgruntled worker or perhaps even a cyber criminal that breaks through security. Accidental deletion. This is actually the #1 cause of data loss. I remember well a systems administrator who thought he was cleaning old unused files from a file server and accidentally deleted everything in the file system. And I know of a case that took years to recover from when a database administrator thought he was on a test system but was on the production system and removed several tables holding critical data from the database. As you can see, even well-intentioned people are a danger to data preservation. Hardware technology becomes obsolete. Anyone who has data still stored on a floppy disk knows this happens. Technology marches on, and it is rare for a vendor to continue to support hardware that is more than a few years old. Software for the hardware becomes obsolete. This is something that is often overlooked. You may have a bunch of spare hardware, but as soon as the operating system no longer supports the software drivers, your hardware is just doorstops. Data formats are no longer recognized. Again, anyone with a WordStar or early Word document knows that if the software to read the data no longer exists, then having the stored data is worthless. These last three items are the reason that having extremely long-lived digital media often isn't all that useful. Luckily, there are strategies that we can employ that will help us mitigate the risk of data loss. Dependable media. You want to make sure your media choice will not experience data loss through bit rot during the desired life expectancy of the media. The more dependable the media, the fewer times you have to go through the migration process. Redundant copies. This one's pretty obvious. The more copies of data you have, the less chance that all the copies will be destroyed or corrupted. Geographically separated sites. You want to make sure that the copies of your data are in different geographical areas, so a single disaster doesn't wipe out everything. The current thinking is that 2 sites are okay if there are multiple copies at each site. 3 sites are obviously better. But then the more sites, the more expensive it is. Dedicated preservation facilities. We learned early in our experience that if at all possible, we want to use facilities that are built specifically for long-term digital preservation. For example, such a facility has the ability to keep media safe even when there is no power for a long period of time. It also has active and passive measures for temperature and humidity control. And we learned from a data center incident that we had that the media storage needs to be isolated from all heat sources. In one of our data centers, a rather unusual set of circumstances caused the air conditioning to fail, but left the power on. Before the machines could be turned off, the aisle temperature had reached over 120 degrees Fahrenheit. We don't know how hot the core temperatures of the machines were. It caused severe damage to both disk and tape media. As a result, we decided that we needed a facility dedicated to preservation for at least one of our sites. Multiple vendors for media and software. Ideally, a preservation system would use different types of media and different software at the different sites just in case there was some type of systemic problem with the media or the software. Dark archive. In order to limit the possibility of either malicious or accidental data loss, one of the sites ideally has very limited access. All data are ingested to the site, but it is only used for restoring data to other active sites, not for normal operations. Scheduled validation of stored data. All items stored in the preservation system have a computed fixity value that can be used to check to make sure that there is no corruption or bit rot in them. Each item should then be checked on a fixed schedule depending on its priority. If a problem is found, then it is restored from one of the other copies. Data classification and standardization. As each item is preserved, the format should be classified and standardized. For example, you might note that you are storing a specific version of a JPEG file. If an ingested item is in a format not supported by the preservation system, it would either be rejected or converted to an acceptable format at ingest time. Preservation planning. One of the major features of a true digital preservation system that sets it apart from normal backups is that it keeps both the physical media and the file formats being stored up to current standards. Media is normally refreshed on a schedule every few years. File formats are migrated to newer versions when the current format is no longer generally in use. For example, if JPEG someday is no longer in general use, the JPEG files would be migrated by the system to a new supported format. Other things you want to consider as you are evaluating a digital preservation system are cost control. That's pretty self-evident. We all want to save money. Provenance. You want your system to have data about the original artifact and any conversions that were made on that artifact. Adhering to standards. By supporting standardized interchange formats, it allows easier interfaces with other systems you may have. Maintaining relationships between objects. A preservation system should be able to maintain the connection between related objects. For example, if you are storing an oral genealogy, and there is an associated picture of the village where it was acquired, you want to make sure that association is not lost. Searching. In order to retrieve data from preservation, the system needs a flexible ability to search the content. And finally, distributing content. A preservation system isn't very useful if there is no easy way to pull the content back from the system to distribute it for use. We've been talking about digital preservation systems in general. Let's take a few minutes and talk about the digital preservation system we have implemented at FamilySearch. We currently ingest between 10 and 15 terabytes a day into preservation. That's typically about 2 million images, as well as the associated metadata files for those images. The FamilySearch preservation system currently holds more than 4.5 billion images and uses about 23 petabytes, that would be 23 quadrillion bytes, of data per copy, and we have 4 copies. Those images and that data come from our 300 plus cameras out in the field, the digitization of our 2.5 million rolls of film, images provided from third parties, and oral genealogies and various other miscellaneous data sources. And we retrieve about 5 terabytes per day. Most of that is for delivery back to the original record custodians. The FamilySearch digital preservation system has the needed features to make it a state-of-the-art system, including but not limited to the following: purpose-built preservation facilities, multiple copies at multiple sites, scheduled media validation with each object having fixity associated, provenance tracking, file format migration, flexible and robust metadata capabilities, completely automated media handling, and the system evolves as best practices and tools emerge in the industry. I mentioned that we have a site that is specifically built for digital preservation. That site is at the Granite Mountain Record Vault. The Granite Mountain Record Vault is set hundreds of feet deep in the side of a mountain near Salt Lake City, Utah. It was originally built in 1965 to store and preserve the FamilySearch microfilm collection and other holdings. The Granite Mountain Record Vault, or Vault for short, is a first-class preservation site. About 5 years ago, a major multi-year renovation effort was completed that included adding the features needed for long-term digital preservation. You will remember the story of our thermal event in the data center I talked about earlier. Well, we learned from that event that heat sources should not be anywhere near where our media is stored. At the vault, all of the equipment that generates any significant amount of heat is located in a data center that is outside of the actual storage vaults. This means that all sources of heat and particulate are separated by considerably more than 100 feet of rock from the actual storage vaults where the media resides. At the vault, there are multiple copies of all of the data. Each copy is housed in a completely separate and independent vault in the mountain, and the media is completely managed by automation. Finally, both physical and electronic access to the vault are very restricted. It is a guarded and locked facility in the middle of a mountain with very limited access. Security is a priority. Our second site is currently located at a cloud storage provider. We now have several years of experience working with various cloud storage providers, and we have a lot of confidence in the ability of our current provider to provide the storage services we require. This is a dark site. We only pull from this site if all of the copies at the other site are compromised. No normal production work uses this site. The site is located in a completely different geographic area where it is almost impossible for any type of disaster to affect both sites. The data is encrypted for security. The storage is highly durable, meaning that it is unlikely that there will be any data loss. The storage is constantly monitored by the cloud provider and by the preservation system. In the unlikely event there is some type of corruption, it will be detected and the corrupted data restored from a different site. The site meets the strict security requirements that we at FamilySearch have. I hope this presentation has been useful for you. We at FamilySearch are very passionate about preserving the records of the ancestry of mankind. Everyone deserves to be remembered. We want to assure you of the following. We are committed to always offering the state-of-the-art protection to records in our possession. Because of our commitment to preserving the records of as many people as possible, FamilySearch bears the entire cost of making sure your records are preserved in perpetuity. Record custodians are welcome to request digital copies of the records they have shared with us at any time. Once again, this is our passion. We are dedicated to preserving as many of the records about the individual people who have lived on this earth as possible. We do not want anyone to ever be forgotten. If you have any questions or want more information, please feel free to contact your local FamilySearch representative. Thank you from all of us involved in records preservation at FamilySearch.